right. Hey, good morning, Groove Nation. It is Tech Talk Thursday. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic today. It's an awesome day today. It's always an awesome day because you guys are hanging out with me today. So I appreciate you guys taking time. If you're watching me live, hit me with the hashtag live. If you're on the replay, hit me with the hashtag replay. And just let me know where you guys are kind of tuning in from. So today we're going to be talking about mobile responsiveness and Groove. I know it is the bane of a lot of people's existence, and I know it's a pain in the neck. But it's one of those things that you kind of have to do. And once you kind of understand the way it works, I think that this should actually help you guys out. It is definitely a little bit of a pain to get the mobile response stuff working. Everybody knows that if you've tried it, sometimes you want to throw your hair out or pull your hair out. So what I'm going to do today is go over a couple things, kind of go over a little bit about how it works. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not an expert in getting it to work by any stretch. It's a lot of trial and error. And it is a lot of frustration, but I'm going to kind of show you kind of the way it works. And then it's a lot of it's going to just kind of be experimental for yourself, kind of get in there, try and see if it works. If it doesn't, kind of mess around with it, try it again. It's definitely one of those trial and error type things. And it's sometimes frustrating, but it's just one of those things. Kind of stay steady and work through it as you go through your build, and it does kind of make sense after a little while. So let's talk about a couple things first. There's kind of I've been going over the way David Lemon kind of went over it, and kind of he breaks it out actually really well. So I'm gonna kind of model some of the stuff he does. So we're gonna just start real quick. So there's really three types of customizations that you can do within Groove, right? You can handle there's the basic part where as you go through the different mobile or the different responsive types, right? You can basically change the sizing and spacing for each one. You can go to advanced level where you actually can change the sizing and spacing, and then you can also start hiding elements on a page because some elements may not make sense to be on a mobile, where some may just make sense to be on the desktops, right? So it's really, that's kind of the advanced thing where you can go and actually hide blocks, hide elements and stuff like that. And then the expert part here is where you can actually create a whole different site for your desktop, for your laptop, for your tablet, for your mobile. You can kind of create a separate one for each one. Now, that's obviously a lot more work, and now you have to maintain several different designs for each site. It's really kind of a pain, and I would not really suggest doing that. So that's kind of what we're going to go over. We're going to go over really the basic, and we're going to touch on the advanced just a little bit. Now, one thing that if you've been in Groove pages at all, one thing you're going to realize is that they use this thing called REM, right, as a sizing thing. Right now, REM actually is just a unit of measure in HTML, and it actually stands for the root EM of the base font size. And it's going to sound stupid technical, but it's basically it stands for the root EM, which is essentially the root font size of your page. And then everything is kind of based off that. And it's a scaling factor. And the reason why they use that is so things can become responsive. Now, don't worry about it. It's nothing major. Just understand that when you start dealing with those things, it's based upon a percentage of a base number. Now, again, nothing you have to worry about. It's just when you see the REM thing, it's not like pixels or anything like that. So just kind of, just like I said, just kind of understand that. And then a couple of the things that are kind of getchas sometimes or gotchas is when you first bring up a page, Groove defaults to the desktop view only, and it doesn't have everything selected. I'm not sure why it used to, and again, I'm not really sure why it does that. And then the other thing is that styles actually apply from the smaller screens and flow up, and I'll kind of explain kind of what I mean about that here in a minute. So let me do this. I'm going to share another screen here that is actually within Groove. So here's our test site. I've used this site a bunch of times. So what you can see is up here is you see your essentially your different devices up here, right? And as you click through, you can see different things happening. So when you default to the page, it comes up with all of these things are going to be white except for this one, which is pink. Now, whichever one is highlighted is the one that you're actually going to be editing. Now, don't let that fool you to say that if I have this, anything I edit on here, nothing else happens to the other devices, because that's not true. And I'll explain why here in a minute. So as you click on each one of these things, right, different things kind of, it'll show the different states. If you double click any one of these, it'll highlight this and everything to the left of it, right? So if I double click on this, it'll highlight that one. If I click on it again, it'll just be that one. If I click on that, it'll give me just the laptop. If I double click it, it'll highlight the laptop and down. See? So that's kind of how you could just kind of maneuver around all these different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically start off with, we're going to do just a very simple site. It's actually going to take about 2 seconds to build here, and then we'll kind of work it from there. So let's go here into page. We're going to go into new. We're just going to use a blank template. We're going to do a very simple layout here. I'm going to do 1 container up top. All right, I'm going to do 3 in the middle, and we're going to do 1 more on the bottom. Okay, so we're just going to have a quick, just a simple layout here. And if you guys have any questions or anything as we're going through this, definitely let me know. Let's see here. I'm just looking to see if there's any comments here. Nothing yet. So you guys, if you guys have any questions as we go through this, just drop them in the comments here below. Let me know, and I'll definitely address them as we go here. So, so the first thing we do is let's just drop a. We're going to drop a header in here, but the first thing I want you to realize is that only thing that's selected right now is just a desktop. Now, I'm not sure why they do it, but for me personally, what I always do when I start off, I have everything highlighted. I want everything to be basically managed, and then I'm going to work backwards from there. So, like I said, we're just going to do a very simple thing here. So I'm going to basically grab a header. I'm going to put this in here, and I'm basically going to just do here. Actually, in here. Here are the awesome features of Groove. All right, and then what we're going to do is, and just so you guys know, I'm actually working off. I have a template that I used before, so it's basically going to look just like this. So I'm just going to just model off that one right there. Oops, where'd that go? It's out of the way up here. All right, so next thing we'll do, we're just going to jam an icon in here. All right, this icon, I know we want it to be pink. I know I want it to be 8 sized. And we want this to be $. All right, so real quick, we're just going to duplicate that. And we're just going to drag these into each thing right here. Oh, awesome. There we go. Oh, let me grab this one. Come on, buddy. Man, sometimes this is just, let me get rid of this. Man, this thing does not want to drag today. What the heck? Man, I love it when demos don't work right. All right, let's go ahead and just start this over. So see, you can actually see it actually does. I mean, everybody has issues with things sometimes. So let's try this one more time here. Gonna jam this in here. We are going to make this 8, just because I know that's the size I want, and update. All right, so let's duplicate this. We'll bring this one over here. Take this one, duplicate this, and bring this one over here. There we go. All right. So we're just going to make a couple of quick changes here just to kind of make this thing so it actually isn't complete. Actually, this is a chart, right? We use this right here. This one here, we're just going to use. All right, so we have that. Let's jam one more little element on this right here. All right, so what we're going to do is going to do that. And you can see sometimes it's easier sometimes, like I like to duplicate and copy. Sometimes it's just easier. Sometimes when you start moving stuff around, what you notice is that it's hard to place things. It's a lot easier to move larger elements than it is the small elements. So like in this case here, when I dragged it over, you see it popped on top. I'll just leave it there. What I'll do is I'll grab the bigger element and just move it, and it'll just pop like that. And sometimes it's just a lot easier just to kind of work with it like that. And then the last thing we'll do, we'll just jam a button on the bottom right here. Where we got a button. There we go, just a button. Okay. So nothing fancy here with the button. We're just gonna change, let's change the sizing here a little bit. We'll make it a little bit larger. There, make it a little fatter this way. We will make it a pink color just for the heck of it. And I like to put borders on the thing like that. So we're just gonna change this to say get started. And normally we would link this to wherever, right? We're just going to link it to Groove. How about that? All right, so we'll update that. Okay. So very, very simple here. So you can see, kind of looks like that. What we actually want to do is we want to kind of center a couple things up here. So one thing that a lot of people that I've watched is a lot of people kind of get messed up on is what exactly to center and where to actually center things. So if you look on the bottom here, it kind of breaks down your hierarchy, right? So you can see that I clicked on right here. So I am in a container that's inside a layout, that's inside a container, that's inside a block, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to actually center my entire block up on this, I want to center the container here, this one. I want to make sure this container is centered within the block, right? So I'll come here to layout. I'm going to go into center, make sure that's centered, which it already is. So the other thing I want to do is I want to center all these pieces within my block right here too. So you can see I have the layout and then I have a container inside that layout. So what I'm going to do is for that container, I'm going to make sure that it's set up to center. And you can see what happened when I clicked on that. It kind of pushed everything it basically made everything side by side. So if I click on vertical and then secondary, you can see it kind of brings everything centered within the container and then centered up and down on each element. So I'm going to do the same thing for here. I'm going to come in here, going to go to layout, vertical, center, center. That'll center it there. Layout, vertical, center, center. All right, so you can see what we've done now is we basically have our main block. Inside our block, we have our container, right, that we have centered, and then we have our layout inside that, and we have our containers inside that layout. So kind of what we've done is we've taken everything. We have our block, which has our container, which has our layout, and then we kind of just we just kind of worked our way all the way down. Okay. So now same thing. So we have our button right here, and you can see if we just click right here, our button sits inside a container, which sits inside a layout, which sits inside another container. So what I want to actually do is I want to center that one as well. So we're going to come here, layout. We're just going to click on center, and that's probably not going to work, right? Nope. Okay, it's because I'm on the main container. So I have to actually come into my container that the button is in, and we can probably do it in here. There we go. And I've noticed that that's definitely one of the things that kind of mess people up is that they try to center things and they're not in the right container. So it's always just understand that things are always going to be centered and controlled by the container that they're in. So if I come on here to button, you can see if I come into this container, that's the container that this button lives in. So I'm going to do everything based on that. Now the whole block, right? If I click on that, it's this whole block. I can actually I could use the spacing tools here and layout, change my spacing for the whole block. This font right here, I actually want that centered. I'll just go ahead and use that right there. So if we look at this now and we look at things right here, right, they're kind of okay, right? They don't look fantastic by any stretch, but they kind of look like okay. And one of the reasons for that is right off the bat is because we actually were able to do things. We clicked on all three. If I would have just done this and I would come back to these other ones, they'd be all sorts of messed up. So that's definitely the first thing to understand is that you want to make sure when you're editing this thing, you want to make sure all these things are clicked. That'll basically be the easiest way. Now, once it's done, that's when you're going to start backing out and clicking on individual things. Now, one thing to realize is that when you are working on any one of these things, the main elements of this page don't change. So what I mean by that is that if I'm on just a desktop version and I have this image right here, if I come to mobile and if I click on this image and I remove this image, because it's a main element of the page, it's going to be removed everywhere. Okay. Items that we change and changing around responsive stuff really just has to do with initially just the sizing and spacing of everything. It'll change colors and things like that too, but things flow up, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. But it's just important to understand that main elements on this page are on every single layout. Just because I delete this here, right? It's going to delete everywhere, even though just this is selected. If I come here, it's gone. Okay. And that the main reason why, like I said, is because it's a main element on the actual page, right? Once you drop an image or icon or text, whatever, right? That code basically becomes embedded on there. It becomes an element on the page. You can't just remove an element. Now, what we can do is change it. And when I said before that styles flow up, right? So let's take, for example, the text right here. So you can see I click on the text. I've got my text block selected. If I come in here and change this color to say green, right? Even though I have just this selected, right? Green is going to flow all the way up, right? I don't understand why it works like that, but it does. But I'm just explaining it actually flows up. So even though I just had this one selected, now if I come to this next one, right? Even though I have just this one selected, and if I change this color, what'll happen is that these will all start to change. So if I change this to pink, right, what you'll see is that all of these will change to pink. This one will remain green. Okay, so look, the styles flow up. Now the same goes for size as well. If I take this one and change the size, because obviously that may be a little bit big. If I change the size here, so it's a full-on header straight across, right? Even though I just had this one selected, it's going to change all the way up, right? So what I have to do now is I have to come into these. If I want the same size as that one, that's fine. If I want the same size as this one, I can go to this one. If I modify the size of this, right, these next three are going to change. So if I make that big, this one's going to be big, that one's going to be big. These two are going to be small because the style flows up. That makes sense? I mean, if it makes sense, just kind of hit me with a #1. If it was like, holy cow, yes, that's a revelation. I didn't know that. So that's what I mean by things kind of flow up. So it's really a little difficult sometimes to realize that. So even though you're working on just one, right, other styles may be affected as well. Now I've been messing around with it a little bit more, and like I said, I'll be honest, I'm not the best at this. It's a matter of just trial and error. But it's definitely one of those things. It can get confusing, and it could get very frustrating sometimes. So if you collect all three and we start changing around, right, what's going to happen? Let's make this thing huge. All right. What you're going to see is that everything is going to be big because we selected everything. Now, if I select this one right here, make this one just small. All right. These three, everything is actually, I'm sorry, because we had everything selected, everything is going to go. Right. If we just had this one, right, and we make this one really big, okay, this one's going to be big. Actually, oh, okay, now they're going to stay the same because we modify these for each one. So that's kind of what it is. So as you start modifying for each one, they'll go ahead and start taking on their custom forms. So it is definitely a little bit weird the way it works. But it's kind of like custom until it's not, if that makes sense. So as soon as you start modifying it for that one, it'll take that and move it all the way up unless it's already customized for that particular size. So it's definitely gonna be a matter of kind of trial and error. So if we're on here, if we want to kind of space some of these things around, so like this whole thing, we kind of want to move this whole thing down here. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the block part. I'm going to push this whole thing down here. Okay. And what you're going to see is that you can see it moved on all of them. Okay. So it's a matter of, okay, so now let's take this one. Actually, this one's kind of okay. Let's take this one. I'm going to come into our block and we're going to move this one even further down. Okay, now this should move for this one and it shouldn't move for these. And you can see it didn't. Okay, so that it makes sense the way things kind of flow up. So if I come to this one now, and if I move this one back up, right? Let's put this one like right there. Because we modified this one, right? This one is going to go back to where it was before. This one right here is going to be back up to the top because that's where we modified it before. And same thing with the rest of these. So things, like I said before, things kind of flow up, and it's once you kind of understand that, it's a lot easier to kind of get things to manipulate. The other thing is to make sure that you're on all these things when you're first laying things out, because what'll happen is that if you don't, it'll just be desktop, and then you have to modify everything. So that's kind of that's just kind of the basic way of how things work. Now, we talked about earlier about things showing on one spot and not on the other. So the way you kind of do that is kind of it's the same way. So what we're going to do is I want to have let's do this. Actually, let's do this. Let's add an image on here. So we kind of show. Actually, you know what? For sake of ease here, what we're going to do is we're going to use. It's a simple thing. We're going to put it right in the middle right here. We're going to put an image in here. Come on, get in there. All right. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to use this thing right here. Okay. And you can see my image is right here. I actually want to center this thing. So I'm going to go to the container. I'm going to come here. I'm going to go to layout. I'm going to go to center. Okay. Now you're going to notice that it's in every one of my things, right? Now, let's say I just want this for whatever reason. I just want this on desktop. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into mobile here, and I want to make sure my block is selected. I'm going to duplicate my block. Okay. So now what you're going to see is I'm going to have two of these on every one. Okay. So I'm going to come here to mobile. For mobile, I'm going to click on this block right here, and I want to make sure I'm on the block. And definitely understand that if I click on here, right, I'm only on the container. I want to be on this whole block right here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do for this block on my desktop is I'm going to hide this. And what that is none. Okay. So you can see it kind of X'd out. If I come here, all right, it's still there. All right. Still there, still there, still on that one. And it's no longer on this one. Okay. So if I save this, and let's just publish this real quick. Give this a second. Okay, so what you see here is that on the desktop, it does not have both of those items. Now, if I make this smaller, I don't know if this is actually going to be responsive. It is. Okay, good. So as I make this smaller, right, it's kind of going to mimic what the desktop looks like. So that's desktop. Now it's going to mimic what the laptop looks like. So as soon as I get to about here, right, there it goes. So now it's actually showing the desktop or the laptop version, right? So it has both of those images on there. If you come over here, you can see, if we look at the laptop version, right, we have both of those images on there. And same thing as we get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? We'll have both those images on there. But this is how you kind of control which images that you want to show. So for example, if I just want to show this image, let's say if I want to show a different image for desktop. So what I can do is I can come over here and we'll do this one right here. Oops, let's make this smaller. Oops. All right, so what you're going to see is that you're going to see this on everyone. And obviously, because I changed the size on just that one's small. So let's see if we can actually do this. And you can see, because I just changed the size on that one, it's going to flow all the way up, except for this one, because it's the one we actually changed, right? That one's a little bit bigger. So if I want just this to show on desktop, but now on here, I only want to show, say, this image, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to come out to my top block here. I'm going to come down to layout. I'm going to go to display, and I'm going to go to none. Okay. And then I'm going to come here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come to this block. I'm going to go to display. I'm sorry, layout, display, and down to none. All right. And then let's say on mobile, I want to show both of them. And on this one, I just want to show, I want to get off this one too. So we'll go to layout, display, none. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. So what we're going to see is when we shrink this thing all the way down, all right, we're going to show, we'll have both images. When we get to the desktop size, we're only going to have, actually, we're going to have no images. So let me do this. Let me get back to here. Change this layout back to block or what the hell happened here? Oh, that's awesome. See, and this is one of those little things that sometimes mess up on me, and I don't know why it does it. All right, so sometimes this actually happens where, let's see if we can go, nope. I don't know why this thing just decided to not show now. So yeah, so this is the frustrating part, that sometimes this definitely happens. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure why it does it, but in a situation like this, I usually just delete that thing and I just restart it. It is definitely a frustration level for sure. Let's just see something that's down in here. Yeah, so yeah, so sometimes that happens. I just want to just try something real quick. I'm going to come in and just reload this page. I want to see if that fixes anything. No, it kind of doesn't. So yeah, so in the case like that, this is why I usually kind of stay away from dealing with the images like that. So in this case, what I would do, I would basically just nuke this one and I would start it again. And like I said, that's kind of the frustration point sometimes for sure. And I'm not really sure why it does it, but it kind of does, and it's just one of those things. So I hope that kind of helped out a little bit, and that just messed up my whole layout doing that thing. But that's kind of the way that you really have to work things. Now, one of the things to do is to work things. An easier way to do it too is to work things piece by piece, right, or at least section by section. So when you get that one section done, right, get everything mobilized. That way, you're not dealing with your entire site. You're dealing with block by block by block. If you do that, it's going to make your life a heck of a lot easier. And I know that there's a lot of things to kind of really pay attention to, but this part up on top where it has the different, this part right up here, this is really important. Just pay attention to it. If you're not paying attention to it, what's going to end up happening is you're just going to end up with just kind of a mess of the site if you go into mobile. So really just pay attention, make sure that you're working the right things. And even if you have to put a note somewhere that says, hey, make sure I'm working the right elements. Because definitely it happens sometimes where all of a sudden, like, things just kind of break. And you can totally just keep going back. This backup button is awesome for that. Go ahead and make some changes. If something doesn't look right, just go ahead and back it out and then tweak it again. So it's there you go. So we can get back to this point right here where we actually have our image back there. So just remember, styles flow up. Once you have your thing there, work from the bottom and kind of work it up that way. So I hope that helped you guys out today. So that was our Tech Talk for today. Quick little half hour. Should definitely help you guys out. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I will certainly do my best to help you guys out. So, all right, have a fantastic Thursday, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye for now.